Jai Shri Shri Guru Gaur Chandraju ki Jai. Jai Shri Giraj Govardhanju ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paribrajakacharya Ashtatar Sadashri Sriman Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paribrajakacharya Ashtatar Sadashri Sriman Srila Bhakti Rakak Sri Dardev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Welcome to Sri Caitanya Saraswat Mission morning class. Dandavat. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jata Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitangstam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vidangscha Oma Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam. Jai Sri Caitanya Charitamrita ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj ki Jai. Srila Om Vishnupad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. All right, we're reading The Residents of Varanasi Become Vaishnavas. We've read the introduction and a few verses. Now we're on text number 10. Okay. Haribo Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So this says that the Maharashtrian Brahmin who is living in Varanasi, so he's hearing, he lives there in Varanasi, and he's hearing so much criticism of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu from the Mayavadi sannyasis. And he's thinking, if by some means I can assemble all these sannyasis together, they will certainly become his devotees after seeing his personal characteristics. In text 10, Varanasi Vasha Amarahai Sarvakale Sarvakala Dukkha Pava Iha Nakarile. I shall have to reside in Varanasi the rest of my life. If I do not try to carry out this plan, I shall certainly continue to suffer mental depression. Saying this one's going to make me very unhappy. I'm going to live here forever. I must do something. Eta chintin mantri la sannyasi ragane tabe se vipra aila mahaprabhurastane. Thinking like this, the Maharashtrian Brahmin extended an invitation to all the sannyasis of Varanasi. After doing this, he finally approached Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to extend him an invitation. Okay, so now he's inviting all of the sannyasis to his home, and then he extended an invitation to Mahaprabhu. Hena kale nindashuni shekaratapana dukapanya prabhupade kaila nivedana. At this time, Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra both heard blasphemous criticism against Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and felt very unhappy. They came to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's lotus feet to submit a request. So Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra are both great devotees of Mahaprabhu, and they are also living in Varanasi, and also the Maharashtrian Brahmin is trying to solve this problem. Vaka duka deki prabhu manete chintila Sanyasi Ramana piraite manahaila. They submitted their request, and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing the devotees' unhappiness, decided to turn the minds of the Mayavadi sannyasis. Hena kale vipra ashi karila nimantrana, aneka dainyadikari darila charana. When Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was seriously considering meeting with the Mayavadi sannyasis, the Maharashtrian Brahmin approached him and extended an invitation. The Brahmin submitted his invitation with great humility, and he touched the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So all these things came together at the same time. Seeing the unhappiness of Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra, Mahaprabhu wanted to give them relief, so he is deciding that he's going to change the minds of the Mayavadi sannyasis. And of course, it's only by his potency that there even was a Mayavad philosophy. It was his order to Lord Shiva to become a Shankaracharya and preach Mayavadi sannyas, Mayavadi philosophy. Tabe Mahaprabhu Tarani Mantrana Manila Aradina Madhyana Karitara Gare Gela. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted his invitation, and the next day, after finishing his noontime activities, he went to the Brahmin's house. Taha Jaiche Kala Prabhu, Kaila Prabhush, Sanyashira Nishtara, Pancha Tattva Kyane, Taha Karyachi Vistara. I've already described Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's deliverance of the Mayavadi sannyasis in the 7th chapter of the Adi Leela. When I described the glories of the Panchatattva, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Prabhu, Gadadhar Prabhu, and Srivas. Grantabare punarukti hayata katana, taha jena kilun taha kariye likana. Since I've already described this incident very elaborately in the 7th chapter of the Adi Leela, I do not wish to increase the size of this book by giving another description. However, I shall try to include in this chapter whatever was not described there. Jai Divasha Prabhu Sanyashire Kripa Kaila, Say Divasa Haite Grame, Kolahala Haila. Beginning from the day on which Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu showed his mercy to the Mayavadi sannyasis, there were vivid discussions about this conversation among the inhabitants of Varanasi. So we already know what happened when Mahaprabhu met with the Mayavadi sannyasis. It's a very nice description, but that is there in the Adi Leela already. So now Krishnadas Kaviraj is going to afterwards when all these Mayavadis were suddenly becoming Vaishnavas. Lokera Sangata Aishe Prabhura Dekite, Nana Shastri Pandita Aishe Shastra Vicharite. Crowds of people came to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu from that day on, and scholars of various scriptures discussed different subject matters with the Lord. So these Mayavadi sannyasis were ostensibly very expert in discussing, contemplating, reading all the Vedanta Sutra through the lens of Shankaracharya, but they did know the verses. And so now that Mahaprabhu wholesale proved to them that that was wrong, and that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, transcendental to the material world, he's not a product of Maya, then people of all kinds of scholarship wanted to discuss things in a serious way with Mahaprabhu, so that they could also come to the correct understanding. Sarva Shastra Kande Prabhu Bhakti Kareshar Sayuktika Bhakya Mana Piraya Sabar. When people came to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to discuss the principles of various scriptures, the Lord defeated their false conclusions and established the predominance of devotional service to the Lord. With logic and argument, he very politely changed their minds. Mahaprabhu was very gentle, but he was completely with logic and calmness and argument, discussing things very calmly. Everyone had to admit, oh yes, this is right. Hari Bom. Upadesha Lanyakare Krishna Sankirtana Sarvaloka Hasegaya Karaye Nartana. As soon as people received instruction from Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, they began to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Thus, everyone laughed, chanted, and danced with the Lord, feeling, so much lightness and happiness of heart. Prabhure pranata haila sanyasira gana atma majje goshti kare chadi ajayana. All the Mayavadi sannyasis offered their obeisances unto Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu and then begin to discuss his movement, giving up their studies of Vedanta and Mayavad philosophy. Prakashanandera shishya ekatahara samana shabamajje kahe prabhura kariya samana. One of the disciples of Prakashananda Saraswati, who was learned as his guru, began to speak in that assembly, offering all respects to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Haya Shakshad Narayan Vyasa Shutrera Artha Karena Ati Manorama. He said Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan himself. When he explains the Vedanta Sutra, he does so very nicely. Upanishadera karena mukyarta vyakhyana shunya pandita lokera judaya manakana. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu explains the direct meaning of the Upanishads. And that's very different from the indirect meaning that Shankaracharya gave. Meaning it was just a meaning that was just pasted on, that really was not the natural meaning. And so this disciple of Prakashananda, who was a prominent sannyasi in the Mayavad school, was saying, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu explains the direct meaning of the Upanishads. When all the learned scholars hear this, their minds and ears are satisfied. It's, yes, of course. The truth is very satisfying. Shuta upana. But otherwise, all their discussions were just trying to establish something that wasn't true. And there was no end of it. And it was so dry, there was no connection with anything divine there in those discussions about reality, which is conscious substance and affectionate. Shutra Upanishadera mukarta chandiya acharcha kalpanakare agara kariya. Giving up the direct meaning of the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishad, Shankaracharya imagines some other interpretation. Acharya kalpita artha je pandita shune mukhe haya kare hridaya namane. All the interpretations of Shankaracharya are imaginary. Such imaginary interpretations are verbally accepted by learned scholars, but they do not appeal to the heart. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Vakya Dridha Satyamani Kali Kale Sannyase Sangsara Nahi Jini. The words of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu are firm and convincing, and I accept them as true. In the age of Kali, one cannot be delivered from the material clutches simply by formally accepting the renounced order. So the persons who take sannyas, they're thinking, by taking sannyas and discussing blah, 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 then automatically you become freed from the clutches of Maya. That's not true. Just by putting on a certain kind of dress and accepting certain rules and regulations, you're not going to come to the transcendental platform. Hare Nama Shlokera Jai Karila Vyakhyana Se Satya Sukhadarata Sukhadarta Parama Pramana. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's explanations of the verse beginning with Hare Nama is not only pleasing to the ear, but it is strong factual evidence. Bhakti bini mukti nahe bhagavate kaya Kali kale namabase sukhe mukhi haya. In the age of Kali, one cannot attain liberation without taking to the devotional service of the Lord. In this age, even if one chants the holy name of Krishna imperfectly, so that word namabas is in this verse, he still attains liberation very easily. Shreya shritim bhaktim udasyate vibo klishyanti je kevala bodhalabhyate teshamashau kleshaladeva sishyate Nanyadhyatastula tu savagatinam. My dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the only auspicious path. If one gives it up simply for speculative knowledge or the understanding that these living entities are spirit souls and the material world is false, he undergoes a great deal of trouble. He only gains troublesome and inauspicious activities. His actions are like beating a husk that is already devoid of rice. His labor becomes fruitless. And this is a quote from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So of course we are also learning that the spirit soul is eternal. And that we are actually spirit souls. And that the material world is false, but they're thinking in a materialistic way, that the material world is outside. In other words, the material world is something which is simply illusion. It doesn't exist. And but they don't know the nature of illusion. They don't actually understand what it is. It is our tendency to exploit that is causing us to see what is real as false. But they think that there isn't anything real. Chainye ravindaksha vimukta maninas Trayastra bhavad avishuddha buddhaya Aruhya kritrena parang padang tata Patyanta donadrita yusmad angraya. O lotus-eyed one, those who think they are liberated in this life but who are devoid of devotional service to you are of impure intelligence. Although they accept severe austerities and penances and rise to the spiritual position, to impersonal Brahman realization, they fall down again because they neglect to worship your lotus feet. Is that clear to everyone?
No.
So unless one comes to the platform of devotional service to the transcendental Lord, he can come to that negative position that there is no, his experience of the varieties of matter cease to be there. It's because he's closed his eyes altogether, you could say. But we're not to close our eyes, we're to purify our eyes and see what is reality, actually. All divine will of the Lord flowing. But they don't do that. And so eventually, again, they're going to fall down because the soul wants some experience, some sweetness. But because they have not entered into the divine plane through devotion, they will again come to this plane for experience and try to exploit the material nature in order to get some false experience for themselves. This is what happens. It's not a permanent position. Is that clearer?
Yes. Thank you.
Brahma Shabde Kahe Sad Aishvarya Purna Bhagavan Tare Nirvishesha Stapi Purnatahayahan. Excuse me. The word Brahman, the greatest, indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead, full in all 6 opulences. Excuse me. Prabhu, would you mind giving me some hot water? But if we take the one-sided impersonalist view, his fullness is diminished. His fullness is not diminished, but the understanding of that fullness is not, it is not complete. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is originally the Supreme Person, and he expands himself impersonally through his potency. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyaktamurtina vadstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavastita. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. The potency of Krishna that is spread everywhere is impersonal, just as the sunlight is the impersonal expansion of the sun globe and the sun god. Thank you, Bo. So we can see sunlight right now, right? But the origin of the sunlight is the sun, and the sun is a person, Vivishvan. So in the same way, the impersonal Brahman effulgence is the effulgence of a person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I mean, this is really vividly described in the Brahma Samhita, and I don't know if this is going to be quoted here later, but that's Yasya Prabha. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jaganandakoti. So this is his. Yasya is personal. It's a possessive pronoun, personal possessive pronoun. That Prabha, that light, that belongs to someone. But in this verse, by me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. The potency of Krishna is that is spread everywhere is impersonal, just like the sunlight is the impersonal expansion of the sun globe and the sun god. If we simply take one side of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his impersonal effulgence, that one side does not explain the absolute truth. It's only a partial understanding. Impersonal appreciation of the absolute truth is one-sided and incomplete. So we can see the sunlight, but we don't know that it's coming from the sun. We don't have a full understanding about that. One should accept the other side, the personal side, Bhagavan, Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti Sabjate. One should not be satisfied simply by understanding the Brahman feature of the personality of Godhead. One must also know the Lord's personal feature. That is complete understanding of the absolute truth. Okay, text number 34. Shruti Purana Kahi Kushnera Chitchakti Vilasa Tahanahi Mani Pandita Kari Upahasa. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, and the Puranas all describe the activities of the spiritual potency of the Lord. If one cannot accept the personal activities of the Lord, he jokes foolishly and gives an impersonal description. That's an interesting way of saying it. The Vedas, the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutra, and the Puranas all describe the activities of the spiritual potency of the Lord. If one cannot accept the personal activities of the Lord, he jokes foolishly and gives an impersonal description. It means his words are like joking words, like foolish. The Vedic literatures, including the Puranas, are full descriptions of the spiritual potency of Krishna. All the pastimes of the Lord are eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, just as the form of Krishna himself is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Unintelligent people with a poor fund of knowledge compare their temporary bodies to the spiritual body of Krishna. And by such foolishness, they try to understand Krishna as being just one of them. Avagyananti mam buddha manusim tanum ashritam. In Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter points out that foolish people think of Krishna as one of them. Not understanding his spiritual potency, they simply decry the personal form of the absolute truth, foolishly thinking themselves as jnanis, cognizant of the complete truth. All right. Well, it's an interesting, it's very interesting. This study of the comparison between Mayavad philosophy, and the full understanding of the absolute truth. You may see some illusion, but illusion presupposes something real. Otherwise, what is the meaning of illusion? Illusion presupposes that there is a real thing. So if something comes, like in a dream, we're feeling all these different kinds of illusory things. But there are those things exist in reality. So an illusion if you see a mirage in a desert, that presupposes that there is water somewhere existing. So to say that there's illusion, but there's no source of that illusion, that there's no real thing, that's only half of an understanding. That something is illusion, it doesn't make any sense. Or that the self, the illusory self is there. There must be a real self. Where's all this variety coming from? Nothing? It comes from nothing. It doesn't make any sense. But if one is envious of the absolute truth, then it doesn't really matter to them if it makes sense. Just like if you give false arguments to establish something which is not true for some reason, like somebody gets caught stealing and he gives all these arguments, but it's still not true. He still did steal. So all these false arguments come out, and the person who's lying can also start believing that, because he's got a vested interest in believing that. And we're all doing that to one degree or another. So it's very important to hear from the great personalities who can explain what truth is, and gradually come out of our false belief in something which is clearly not true. But we have an invested interest because we're averse to the personality of Godhead, who really is the enjoyer. And we can never be him. He's so wonderful. Why would we even want to be him? But we have this enviousness, and therefore we are invested in things which are clearly not true. They're foolish. And now we're getting an opportunity to hear and practice. Hearing is not enough. Hearing must be also taken in these processes of devotional life. in order for our consciousness to actually be affected and cleared. Hearing is also very purifying, but we must engage in service. Service is also chanting or preaching, but also we have to purify our own selves through surrender, through bowing down to the lessons that the Lord is bringing us on a daily basis, especially the things that are bothering us. Very good for us to bow down to. And the ego is just going to put up such a fuss. But, we're getting a little sick of that yapping dog. Jai Sri Caitanya Charitamrita ki Jai, Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj ki Jai, Srila Om Vishnupad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. So now here we're on text 62, the first volume of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. This is chapter 3, page 230. Jai. Oh, Jai Srila Sanatana Goswami Pad ki Jai, Sri Sad Goswami Prabhu ki Jai, Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai, Jai Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Srila Guru Maharaj ki Jai, Mahaprabhu ki Jai, Giriraju ki Jai, and Srimati Tulsi Devi ki Jai. Now, this is Lord Shiva giving instruction to Narada about the glories of Vaikuntha compared to where he is. Lord Shiva is saying, this is not your final destination, Shiva Loka, Sura Shiva Loka, even beyond the material world. But still, you must go to Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha is higher. Text 62. Param Bhagavata Shakam Shakshad Krida Parampara Sadhanubhavitum Tarhi Vaikunto Pekshate Kvachit. But in Vaikuntha, devotees always relish ongoing pleasure pastimes in the very company of the Lord. Therefore, devotees sometimes prefer to live there. Commentary: why single out Vaikuntha and its residents for praise if devotees of Vishnu on the earth are equally glorious? Because although pure Vaishnavas reveal on the earth the glories of devotional service, only in Vaikuntha the devotees enjoy the company of the husband of the goddess of fortune in endless varieties of ecstatic pastimes. These loving reciprocations appear in Vaikuntha and nowhere else. For that reason, Vaikuntha has received its name. It is the world where no one ever feels the anxiety, kuntata, of not tasting the perpetual flow of devotional rasa. Jai Shishi, Jai Mahaprabhu ki Jai, Jai Giriraju ki Jai. When the personality of Godhead momentarily disappears from the external or internal sight of his devotees in Vaikuntha, his disappearance only increases their eagerness to see him and be with him. In Vaikuntha, even the Lord's absence increases his devotees' awareness of him and their enjoyment of rasa. It increases devotion. Devotion is the essence of sweetness. Devotion to the Lord, in union or separation. Both increase that devotional feeling.
Devi, could you just repeat it? What increases devotion?
Well, it's so Srila Sanatana Goswami is explaining that sometimes the Lord of Vaikuntha, Narayan, he will suddenly disappear, and the devotees don't see him anymore, and all those endless varieties of pastimes of reciprocation with the Lord, but their separation from him increases their devotion. What is said here? When the personality of Godhead momentarily disappears from the external or internal sight of his devotees in Vaikuntha, his disappearance only increases their eagerness to see him and be with him. And of course that mood is devotion. There's no other mood. In Vaikuntha, even the Lord's absence increases his devotees' awareness of him. So there's union, a deeper union with him in separation. And their enjoyment of rasa is also increasing. Ato hi sarve tatratya mayokta sarvatodika daya vishesha vishaya krishnasya parama priya. That is why I say that the residents of Vaikuntha are greater than anyone else, everyone else. As the object of Krishna's special mercy, they are his most beloved devotees. Commentary. The Vaikuntha Vasis are greater than liberated Vaishnavas in the material world, among whom Lord Shiva counts himself. The reason for their various manifest glories, Lord Shiva argues, must be Lord Vishnu's favoring them more than others. They must be his dearest servants. Shri Parvati Vacha Tatrapi Shri Viveshena Prasida Shri Hari Priya Tagrid Vaikuntha Vaikuntha Vaishnavam Ishwari Hiya. Shri Parvati said, so Parvati is also there with Lord Shiva. Furthermore, among them all, the goddess Shri is famous as especially dear to the Lord. She is indeed the ruling goddess of Vaikuntha and its residents. She said, furthermore, the goddess of fortune is also there with Lord Narayan. And she is the ruling goddess of Vaikuntha. Commentary. Lord Shiva's consort Devi is a partial expansion of Lord Vishnu's consort Shri. When Parvati heard her husband praising Vaikuntha without mentioning the queen of Vaikuntha, Parvati became somewhat disturbed. Therefore, she took the liberty to speak out. Everyone who knows the goddess Shri knows that she is beloved wife of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, one of her names is Hari Priya. She is worshipped with reverence by all the Vaikuntha Vasis. To uphold the claim that Lord Vishnu's consort Shri is his most favored devotee, Parvati now will describe her greatness in more detail. Yasya katakshapatena lokapala vibhutaya jnanam virakti bhaktischa siddhyanti yadanugrahat. Her mercy expands wherever she casts her sidelong glance. Thus the rulers of various planets obtain their powers, their knowledge, their detachment, and their devotion. Commentary. According to Mother Parvati, the demigods are powerful only by the blessings of the goddess Shri. It is thanks to Shri that the demigods correctly understand the relative positions of God and the finite living entities, that they have given up interest in material enjoyment and liberation, and that they have become devotees of the personality of Godhead. As Durvasa Muni told Indra in the Vishnu Purana, Yata Sattvam Tato Lakshmi Sattvam Bhutyanusharicha Nishrikanam Kuta Sattvam Binatena Guna Kutaha. Where there is patience, opulence arises. Where there is patience, opulence arises, and patience also follows opulence. How can those not favored by the goddess Shri have patience? And without patience, how can they have good qualities? That is said in the Vishnu Purana. So what Parvati Devi is saying, her mercy expands wherever she casts her sidelong glance. her glance is mercy. So even where her mercy is not direct, where her glance is not direct, but just sideways, then also so much mercy is going there. Thus the rulers of the various planets obtain their powers, their knowledge, their detachment, and their devotion. In the same chapter of the Vishnu Purana, Lord Indra offered the following prayer to Lakshmi Devi. Yagya vidya mahavidya guhya vidya nashobhane atma vidya cha devi tvang vimukti paladaini. O resplendent goddess, you personify the mystic knowledge of sacrifice, of material nature. I'm going to ask you for this list. Can you please do something for me, Prabhu? Could you turn the heat up a little bit?
What was it?
You turn the heat on up. Excuse me for that interruption. O resplendent goddess, you personify the mystic knowledge of sacrifice, of material nature, of the secrets of devotional service, and of perfection for the soul. O resplendent goddess. Okay, I'm giving a list now. This is the following prayer to Lakshmi Devi by Lord Indra. You personify the mystic knowledge of sacrifice, the material nature, of the material nature, of the secrets of devotional service, and of perfection for the soul. So you personify all these things. That, in other words, that is all coming from you. You are the giver of ultimate liberation. Ultimate liberation is pure devotional service, which is ruled by the consort of the Supreme Person and gained by a fortunate soul only when she recommends that soul to the Lord. Is that clear? You have to keep... O resplendent goddess. So, what Lord Indra is saying is that all these things which are attainable, like mystic yoga of sacrifice, the mystic understanding about sacrifice, what is that mystical thing that's going on there? That knowledge, that clear understanding, that one, and the understanding of what the material nature is, and the secrets of devotional service and perfection for the soul, all those things, you personify those understandings. And you are the giver of ultimate liberation, meaning positive life in the divine plane. If you do not recommend the soul to the Lord does not take interest in him. Therefore, Hare Krishna.
What is the name of that goddess?
The goddess of fortune, Sri, or she has so many names, but she is Lakshmi Devi. She is the consort eternally of Lord Narayan. But her original form, she is an expansion of Radharani. She is the ultimate goddess of fortune. And she is the ultimate giver of service to Krishna.
So she has something to do with Dasi Maharani, right?
Dasi Maharani, that is a different person.
Different person?
Yeah.
She also bestows devotion.
Yes, because she is so dear to Radharani. So dear. So we have to look up and see where these things are coming from. They're not coming from me. I can't take any credit. Everything is coming from Guru. And the ultimate Guru is Srimati Radharani in the very highest plane. The Guru is representing her. But generally we're thinking of Gurudev as representing Baladev. He is the original guru in one sense. But here, Parvati Devi, who is Maya Devi? She's the consort of Shiva, and she is praising the goddess of fortune. So Maya Devi, in one sense, is called the witch Maya, meaning the witch meaning who can cast spells. And Maya Devi also has her very frightening form, Durga Devi, or Kali, not Kali, but Kali, very scary forms. But that is all to do with material illusion. But she herself, in her original form, she is always praising the goddess of fortune. Okay, gotcha? Any question about that?
So Maya Devi and the goddess of fortune are the same person?
She's an expansion.
Or are expansions?
There are many, many levels of all of these things. This form of Parvati is living beyond the material world with Lord Shiva in Sadashiva Loka, outside of the material nature. So, but when she expands herself into the material world, it adds the material world, really.
That's Maya Devi.
There are different forms of her. Okay, this is text 66. Text 66. Javihayadarena Pajamanam Vipajushan Vivretapo Viraradya Nirapeksham Chatang Priyam. Ignoring people like you, she's saying to Narada. Ignoring people like you who worship her with great respect, she vowed to undergo severe penances to worship her beloved Lord, even though he was indifferent to her. So she's saying Lakshmi Devi ignored those who worship her, and she went to perform severe austerities. Commentary: only devotional service to the Supreme Lord can attract the attention of Goddess Lakshmi, who worships Lord Narayan with pure devotion. She willingly accepts any difficulty and any menial service to please him, although he, being satisfied in himself, does not need anyone's help to fulfill his desires. Many Vaishnavas look to Mother Lakshmi's example of perfect surrender, hoping to follow in her footsteps. The wives of the Kaliya snake, for example, prayed to Sri Krishna. You know the Kaliya serpent snakes?
The one that was poisoning the Yamuna River?
Yes, and his wives, the Nagapatnis, the wives of the snake, they came and offered so many prayers to Krishna. O Lord, we do not know how the serpent Kaliya has attained this great opportunity of being touched by the dust of your lotus feet. For this end, the goddess of fortune performed austerities for centuries, giving up all other desires and taking to austere vows. And this is in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, and also in prose in the Krishna book. You guys should be reading the Krishna book really every day. It's so lovely to read. Very beautiful. And so many pastimes of Krishna in there. The Supreme Goddess Mahalakshmi is the eternal beloved of the Lord of Vaikuntha. Right? The Supreme Goddess Mahalakshmi is the eternal beloved of the Lord of Vaikuntha. She does not have to worship him to achieve him. She's already eternally his consort. That had no beginning. This is always who she is. But her expansions descend as avatars to accompany the various incarnations of Narayan, and some of these avatars of Mahalakshmi, such as the daughter of Bhrigu Muni, are described in Vedic scriptures as performing penances to obtain the Lord as their husband. Okay. So again, explain this point that the Lord Narayan, he's expanding himself as the different forms of Vishnu. They are Mahavishnu's breathing out all these universes and then entering into each of these universes as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, from whom Lord Brahma is born, and then Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who's right now in your heart and my heart and in every heart. So from Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, so many expansions are coming. Leela expansions, Leela, like coming up pretty soon is Lord Ramachandra's appearance day in the beginning of April. He's also an expansion. Leela avatars, Guna avatars, Yuga avatars, and each one of them has their eternal consort. But sometimes it's shown, and those are all expansions of Lakshmi Devi, who we've been talking about. She's also expanding herself. And sometimes it's seen that she's doing austerities to get the Lord as her husband. These are pastimes. But she's actually the eternal consort of Lord Narayan. But in pastimes, many things are happening. So the daughter of Bhrigu Muni, a great Muni, she was the expansion of the goddess of fortune, and she performed many austerities for centuries, so that it was her nature. She was thinking, I want only the Lord as my husband, and she performed many austerities for a long, long time. But of course, this is a pastime. It is her feeling, I will only marry the Lord. And we see these in other pastimes too. Rukmini Devi, she was praying to the goddess Katyayani. I only want Krishna as my husband. But of course, Rukmini is eternally the wife of Krishna. But these are pastimes. So Parvati Devi is saying, ignoring people like you who worship her with great respect, she's saying to Narada, the goddess of fortune vowed to undergo severe austerities to worship her beloved Lord, even though he was indifferent to her. So different times, different kinds of pastimes. It is a really wonderful thing when we hear, although he is indifferent to her. It doesn't mean he has no affection for her, but he has no it is not that he is a dependent person. He's not dependent on anything at all. He's fully Swarat, he's fully independent. But in pastimes of affection, it looks like he's dependent. And in one sense, he becomes dependent because of that affection. But we can also remember that he is not dependent. Well, these are all really beautiful points. Any question or comment? So who is speaking here? Parvati. Parvati, the consort of Shiva. She is, you've been praising Lord Narayan. Now I want to say something about the goddess of fortune. So she was, although naturally shy, but she's coming forth to say something. Karoti vasatim nityam. Because I'm saying that because it's saying anyway, please describe that. Karoti vasatim nityam ya ramye tasya vakshasi pativratotama shesha vatareshvanuyatiyamum. This most perfect of chaste wives resides forever on his beautiful chest and follows him in all of his incarnations. Commentary. One of Sri Mahalakshmi's expansion is the Lakshmi who controls and dispenses the opulences of this material world. Those who seek this Lakshmi's grace know from their experience that she is fickle. You know the word fickle?
No. What does fickle mean?
Fickle means I like this, going there and going here and going there. Not steady. Fickle. In other words, that expansion of Lakshmi Devi in the material world, that expansion of Lakshmi Devi in the material world, she will give a bunch of wealth to somebody, but then what happens? He can't keep it. He will not keep his wealth. Even if he has it for a lifetime, he won't have it later. So they always say that, even the total Western persons who have no knowledge, they'll say, oh, Lady Luck. Lady Luck, she's the fickle person. You get lucky, then you won't get lucky. And that word lucky comes from Lakshmi. In Bengal, when they say Lakshmi, they say lucky. And the British who were in India, they started using this word. So, Lady Luck, they know she doesn't stay anywhere for very long. So her expansion, Lakshmi Devi's expansion in the mundane world, is known as Chanchali, or one who is unsteady, going here and there. But the original Lakshmi is never unsteady in her devotion to Lord Narayan. She always stays in his company, resting on his chest and following wherever he goes. Jai Mahaprabhu, Jai, Jai Guru. Haribo. Evanyata Jagat Swami Deva Devo Janardanaha Avataram Karochesha Tata Shri Chat Sahatya Tata Shri Stat Sahanyini. Just as the Lord of the universe, the God of gods Janardan, descends to this world, so does his helpmate, the goddess Shri. Devatve devadehenam manusyatve cha manusi Vishnu dehanurupam vai karotye satmanastanum. When he appears as a demigod, she appears as a goddess. And when he becomes a human man, she becomes a human woman. She accepts for herself a body exactly corresponding to whatever body the Lord Vishnu assumes. And he does not accept a material body like we do, but he is showing himself in many different forms. And she also assumes these different forms. Correspondingly, she's always accompanying him. The Lord always appears with the goddess of fortune. So in the case of Ramachandra, it is Sita Devi, for example. Haribol. So this is the description by Parvati. Shri Parikshiruvacha Tata Parama Harshena Kshobitat Malapam Panmuni Jaya Shri Kamala Kanta He Vaikunta Pate Hare. Shri Parikshit said, then the sage, his mind what sage? Narada Muni. Then the sage, his mind vibrating with extreme delight, called out, glories to you, O husband of the goddess Kamala, O Hari, Lord of Vaikunta. So his name is Kamala Kanta, or one who is very dear to Kamala, who is the goddess of fortune. Jaya Vaikunta Loketi Tatrutya Jayatyeti Cha Jaya Krishna Priye Padme Vaikunta Dishwarityapi. Glories to you, O Vaikunta world. Glories to all who live there, and glories to you, O Padma, Lord Krishna's beloved, O presiding goddess of Vaikuntha. Padma, that's another name of Lakshmi Devi. O presiding goddess of Vaikuntha. Commentary here, having heard Lord Shiva and Parvati's description of the glories of Vaikuntha, its residence, and its presiding goddess, Narada was overwhelmed with ecstasy. Although the Supreme Person was currently present on earth in Dwarka, Narada forgot this and wanted to go at once to Vaikuntha. Expressing his ecstasy, he first praised Lord Narayan, then his kingdom and its residence, and at last the greatest devotee in Vaikuntha, Sri Mahalakshmi. Very beautiful. And so we'll start here next time. And Narada is going to go to Vaikuntha. So, Jai, Sri Narada Muni ki Jai. He is also our great guru in this line. Narada Muni, hearing from Lord Brahma, and then from Narada, who is the guru of Vyasadeva, and so on down in this line, this Shiksha line. So we are, and very much worshipping Sri Narada Muni and asking for his divine mercy for us. Really, it's mercy. And when we are trying to surrender, especially to the things that we are very deeply conditioned to not liking, and we see clearly that we are not liking this because it is coming to teach us who we are, and we don't want to know that, then we can understand how much mercy we need to overcome these things. They're very strong in our stupidity. It is the characteristic of our stupidity, honestly. And so we are very much trying to overcome all of these things. But it is all mercy that we are even aware of them. It is all coming from the grace of the divine environment that's tapping us on the shoulder and going, you need to pay attention to this thing in yourself. Oh dear. When we begin our devotional process, we're thinking, oh, the bad world, the material world, the karmis, all this bad stuff. And certainly we want some protection according to our position. But really, later on, we start realizing the material world is in my own eye. It's in my own eye. And then we have to practice surrender. We must do it. Because Krishna can remove that. But he is telling us how he is doing this. And we must also play our part. He's giving us mercy, but we have to take it. And he's telling us how to do this. You surrender to me. I am doing this. I am removing these things, but you must allow me to do this. And you must want me to do this. You have free will also. And Guru Maharaj, the scriptures are telling us again and again how to see the environment. And Srila Gurudev also talking about this in wonderful ways. We must change our relationship with the environment. And this is a war. This is not an easy thing to do. But once it is accomplished, every level of it is accomplished, it's like, why did I even put up a fuss about this? This was only causing me suffering. But there are more to come, layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. But that's all right, because we're now on the battlefield. And with our friends, talking about this, encouraging each other in many, many ways. Reminding each other in the midst of war how to manage it. And so we're going on in this way, really more and more realizing that this is 100% mercy. And by the time Srila Guru Maharaj is saying, Krishna won't tolerate any pride in his devotee. So we're hanging on to pride in so many ways, thinking that it is actually the thing which is sustaining me, without a feeling of having distinction, adoration, and profit, that I won't exist. What will I be? We're depending upon illusion, ever-shifting illusion. So we have to come out of this platform and start realizing that we are existing because of mercy from the upper plane. And Guru Maharaj is saying, and we were listening to that yesterday, the Zoom last night with Srila Madhusudana Maharaj and Keshwananda Prabhu was explaining how there was this big earthquake in Myanmar and Burma, but it was felt all the way quite far away, quite devastatingly, in Bangkok. And I knew about it because we were talking about it practically while it was going on in the middle of the night. But I was thinking about this. When Guru Maharaj said, when there is a flood, you must seek higher ground. And the flood is coming. All these things everything we're hanging on to will be destroyed. So we are trying to remember these things, and don't seek higher ground later. Seek it now. Have a connection, have a place in a plane of consciousness that is not subject to the shakings of this mundane world. Do that now. You won't be able to do it later. So King Kulashekar in this prayer is famous, very famous, and it is included in Srila Guru Maharaj's Prapana Jivanamrita, that Krishna Tadiya Padapangaja Panksharanta. He's saying, let me now, while I'm in good consciousness and health, entangle myself in the stems of your lotus feet. Because what will happen at the time of death? Everything goes crazy. Vata mixes with Pitta, and Pitta mixes with Kapha, and Kapha mixes, everything is mixed together, nothing's going right. There's no system, everything's falling apart. Will I be able to remember you? So now is the time.
Mahaprabhu in, I think it's the morning song, Jiv Jago, or yeah, that we've made a promise that we will worship the Lord, but we have forgotten about that promise. Is that
Initio Shodi Maya. Yeah, we came into this world saying, oh, I'll worship you. But then we forgot that. Bulia means to forget. Bulia rohile to me. Avidyara. Avidya means ignorant. Illusion. No knowledge, no understanding. I've forgotten you, and now I've gotten entangled in a complex mess of illusion.
At what point after we leave this body, we make that promise to the Lord?
After we leave our body?
After we leave the body, like when we die. When we leave the body.
It's not about the body. It's about coming into this world in the first place. Coming in touch with Maya. Because, there's, when the soul enters into the mundane atmosphere, into that Chidabhas atmosphere, there's some awareness of something divine. He hasn't come so much entangled. He hasn't done anything yet to entangle himself. But gradually the modes of material nature come and he becomes super entangled in mundane life. Now I've forgotten, coming into a sort of a religious position, a pious position coming from the Brahmajyoti, a pious position. And yes, I have come here, but it's, I'm going to do good things. I'm going to be a good servant of yours, but material nature just takes over and so much entanglement. So this is the original position of coming from that non-differentiated plane into this plane. He's talking about this world, like this whole world, the whole plane of Maya.
Not just this one.
You mean not just the Earth
He's
planet?
talking about the material.
The whole
world, the whole material unit.
The whole material world, meaning the whole plane of illusion. Yeah. So it's described, and I can't remember exactly where, but Srila Prabhupada also was telling us, when the soul, like for example, when the Jnani, if there's a successful Jnani who actually comes to that non-differentiated plane, well, again, he will fall down. But when he does, he's a pious person. He comes into a pious consciousness where he's doing good because he disassociated himself through his austerities and so on. But again, he comes back. But he doesn't come back as like a low person or an animal. He comes back as someone who's doing good, opening up hospitals. He has a tendency to do pious things in the material plane. But that doesn't remain. The influence of matter will entangle us more and more and more and more. And again, avijjara, completely entangled in illusion, without memory, without that proper memory of the Lord. So many lifetimes, we have to see time in a very different way than how we see it now. We see time we're just like looking through a pinhole. Pinhole, like if you take a piece of paper and put a pin through it, and you look through that hole, you don't see that much. So we're looking through a pinhole of time. But time is massive. And we've been through so many lifetimes. This is a significant lifetime only because we came in touch with Mahaprabhu through Guru. Otherwise, lifetime after lifetime has no significance at all. You don't even remember it. There's nothing valuable in it. It's a complete waste of time. But now we've come in touch with something truthful and real and begin to make our progress to that. That's why this teeny little time that we have in this life is so significant. Otherwise, it's completely insignificant. Has no significance at all. It's like a blink of an eye. Who would remember such a thing? And then you die with all these debts to pay, or some pious activities, and that's another kind of debt. But it keeps you in the material world. Hari Bol. All right. Yeah, it's a good question. It is a really good question. What does it mean to come to this material world? It's certainly not just another birth. We've been doing this a long time. All these tendencies in ourselves, you can see them from the time a child is born. There's certain tendencies. That's called their personality. But it didn't just happen by coincidence. These are developed from past lives. Some of them favorable, some of them not very favorable. And part of the duty of every parent is to try to remove so many things which will cause trouble in their future while they're children, because it's much easier. But those tendencies aren't just some kind of random thing. These are tendencies that we have developed over our previous lives. Some very auspicious, some not. So those parents who are Vaishnavas, they can give very great nourishment to their children. Haribol Jai Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita ki Jai Srila Sanatana Goswami Pad ki Jai. Haribol. I'll just do a short version of the Hariharaya verses. We're going a little bit late today. Sri Caitanya Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Rakha Sri Radhe Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai. Sri Caitanya Saraswat Acharya Vrinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Sagoswami Prabhu ki Jai. Saparshad Sriman Mahaprabhu ki Jai. Saparshad Sri Nityananda Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakund Radha Kundi Giri Govardhan ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi ki Jai. Kol Kartal ki Jai. Hari Nam Sankirtan ki Jai. Samaveda Vaishnava Mandala ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari.
Madhava Priya Devi,
Dandavat.
Krishna Priya Devi,
Dandavat.
Braja Mohini Devi,
Dandavat.
Bhaktimboni,
Rumani Bhaktimboni.
Gangalila Devi.
Who?
Gangalila.
Oh, Gangalila.
And Bhima Krishna Prabhu.
Bhima Prabhu Dandavat. Wow, so blessed this morning to have your company. Wish I could see you all, but all I see is the back of a phone.